Good evening and welcome to another community forum. Viewers, welcome. Chris, I'm your host Byron Campbell and co-host Chris Diali, of course, Chris.
Good evening, Byron. Good evening to our viewers. Welcome again to another community forum. We're happy to have you and to let us into your bedrooms and living rooms, wherever you are, so we can have our program this evening.
And I just want to tell our guests that our viewers that we have a very interesting program for you this evening. We have a special guest who is an earth scientist and a woman entrepreneur. We're going to be discussing. I'll tell you who it is coming. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Community Forum comes to you in association with the Grenada Development Bank.
Are you concerned about the impact of climate change on your home or business? The Enhanced Direct Access Climate Adaptation Revolving Fund at the Grenada Development Bank can make your worries a thing of the past. The fund offers concessional financing to households and businesses, focusing on vulnerable populations such as lower-income families and persons with special needs. You could qualify for up to EC $200,000 with an incredibly low interest rate of just 2% annually. With this funding, you can make essential improvements such as building retaining walls for erosion control, making structural improvements to withstand hurricanes, and installing water-efficient bathroom solutions. Take action today. Contact the GDB at 440-2382 to learn more about how you can apply for this funding opportunity. Let's work together to create a climate-resilient nation. The Enhanced Direct Access Project is financed by the Green Climate Fund through the Government of Grenada.
Welcome back, viewers, to Community Forum. Chris, another week, lots been happening. Let's start. We have a billfish tournament taking place. Good for the economy. Annual event. Kudos to the organizers. What's your take on it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, billfish is normally well supported from the region, Trinidadians, Bajans, and from afar, even as far as Miami. I'm not sure what is the total boat tally, but I knew they were expecting in excess of 70 boats.
Whoa.
So, I mean, probably later on we'll get an understanding of how many boats. The fishing has been relatively good based on the reports coming back for the first 2 days. They had a lot of catch and release. Some, I think in day one or day two, there were 80 plus catch and release. So that's good for the billfish.
So they don't bring the fishes home?
Well, they do, depending on what it is they catch. And,
okay.
And the conditions and rules as to what you could, under a certain weight, you have to release them. Over a certain weight, yes, you could.
You say it's good for the economy. Where we make the money? Where?
Well, a lot of it is in the, when the boats pull up, they have to eat and drink. Some of them come with their own stuff, but they have to fuel up as well. There's a lot of fuel they use. And, other stuff that they do, they get involved in the local community, go to bars, go to other places. It's like a holiday, a week holiday.
I was able to supply the fresh citrus to them, Chris.
Right, so you see, that's the point. So the local entrepreneurs get some spin-off. And even the local side of the tournament, because there's a local side of the tournament where fishermen in every parish get involved, and they go and they get prizes and so on. And it's really a good thing for the country from that point of view.
COVID-19 still with us? Still cause for concern? Need to be cautious?
Yeah, I think so, Byron. I believe those of us who are probably more at risk will have to start wearing masks, I believe. And with the expected influx of visitors coming for the celebrations for the 50th anniversary of independence, you expect that. And it's not just COVID, there's influenza going around as well, and other respiratory type diseases that you need to be aware of. And I believe one of the things is that those vulnerable ones in terms of age, young children and elderly, and those who have medical issues will want to be on the cautious side, protect themselves. And the easiest way is to continue to wear masks and continue to use, sanitize properly, and observe distances, stay away from large crowds, and so on. And you
Caution.
know, the basic thing.
You talk about independence. The anniversary celebration is on. Clearly, there was a community forum in St. Paul's, and I think it was Dr. Alexis in his presentation was talking about constitutional reform. And he thinks that this is appropriate for this time. And I want to endorse that. I want to agree. I'm embarrassed sometimes when you talk about you pledge allegiance to the king and the queen and 50 years. I mean, like, why do we have to do this, Chris? I mean, I'm embarrassed. That's all I have to say.
I mean,
it's timely.
It is. I mean, independence has its positives and its negatives, obviously. Some of us believe that there is no true independence, especially as a country like Grenada, financially and economically.
Allegiance to the king. Why?
Well, there's a colonial past that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we want to break away from that.
Not may, we need to.
And the issue is we don't get anything really from them. I mean, and August was on our program, and when he spoke about the Privy Council still being our final court, and the Privy Council don't really want us. I mean, there are a lot of these things that we need to properly rectify, and has to be done through constitutional reform and referendum. So, I mean, there are a number of things, and so I just believe that you cannot be truly independent unless there is a certain level of food security independence, economic independence.
I know about the constitutional part of it, Chris.
So,
I know
mean,
that,
we need to be clear on what it is we're going after.
But we look forward to the celebration and the activities, and we
50 years is a milestone.
It's a milestone, critical,
100, whatever it is.
Very important. School sports is on, but of course the stadium is not available. How convenient it is for schools, the facilities, given what we used to.
I am told that they're relaying the Mondo track because of issues with the track, and we have this big thing coming up for Carifta and so on that they need to get prepared for. But the school sports are taking a hit because with all the rains falling, unusual for January at this time, not that the farmers may be complaining, but the track and using Tantine for most of the schools in St. George. I don't believe some of them have had to postpone because of heavy showers and the use of the track. So it is a challenge. Intercall is right around the corner. I'm not sure which venue they're going to use for Intercall yet. I haven't been told whether they have announced it, but that is right around the corner. So you're expecting an Intercall is a huge event in that sporting calendar, in the school sporting calendar. So it'll be interesting to see where they're going to get to house the amount of students for Intercall, which venue is able to do that. So that is a challenge I think they will have, but something that I'm quite certain the government is working on. But for the kids and the children, you know, I'm certainly not happy about the conditions under which they have to perform.
Interesting. Look, the war in Gaza, well, the Israeli Gaza Palestinian rather situation is still ongoing. Numbers, I mean, every week numbers now is like 25,500, 62,000 wounded. But what's mostly interesting though here is that the U.S. complicity in this. In other words, people are saying they're both militarily and politically connected to the alleged genocide that is taking place, and there could be implications for them. But what's more important is the International Court of Justice in a release today indicated that they will be given their verdict, their preliminary position advisory on the matter vis-a-vis what South Africa has requested, that is a cessation in the war, you know, to stop the so it'd be interesting at 12 Greenwich Mean Time, we'll have a decision
tomorrow?
On Friday. So I mean, I think the world is looking forward to this. The highest court in the world clearly are looking forward to some decision on this, because this can't go on when you look at the brutality and the inhumane treatment that is taking place there, Chris.
But I think what is even more concerning is the widening of the conflict through Yemen, what is happening in the Red Sea, and the impacts on the global economy and what is projected to happen. And you know, that is something that we had to pay close attention to as well. Because a number of countries, including Iran, we had this blip with Pakistan and so on. So there's a widening and seeming to be widening issue with this conflict and where people are taking positions, hardline, of course, and what is happening. So it is something the world has to pay attention to because the impact could be significant in terms of, as I said, economic upturns in price of oil and price of food and what happens. So it is not just the suffering between what Israel is doing to the Palestinians through Hamas, or the projected thing about destroying and getting rid of Hamas, but it is one of those things. And the ICJ report and preliminary opinion on what is going to come forward from the presentations make will be interesting to see how the world reacts to it.
That's correct. That's correct. So we should listen. Everyone should listen on around. That would be late morning, I think, our time, to see what the ruling is. AgriVest, a major.
When you went to AgriVest today, I mean, in all that was going on, I mean, we have the agriculture census going on.
Yeah.
How did you think, the timing of AgriVest is based on the fact that we have no real recent data that we could do a strategic plan through what AgriVest is supposed to be trying to accomplish?
So I think it was bringing stakeholders, including exporters, foreign buyers, together, farmers, to look at a holistic approach to the industry. To what extent this was achieved, one has to look at the report, what is generated from the activities. Such an activity is expensive, but it's important. I think once we discussing it, in other words, all the issues outlined are known. But I agree with you that the census will be crucial in planning, because you can't plan without data. The data that's available now on agriculture, if you're looking at how many people are involved, what's the average age of the farmer, what is the farmer producing, what's the status, generally, the numbers, the data. Because you can't plan outcomes or outputs if you don't have the data. You want to be able to know how much people you want to move from A to B.
You also need to find out where you're directing the funds.
That's correct.
Which subsector of agriculture is making sense.
That's correct.
And how we could do it. I mean, I don't know if fisheries was included in this, because
fisheries was included, although there was not a lot on fisheries. There was a presentation on the fishery sector. Because interesting, the value of the export of fish was shown that it is immediately after nutmeg. So fish, nutmeg is significant, I would say. But clearly, even the available information we have now showing that the value of agriculture based on GDP is declining. It's now like under 5%, 4.5, 2%. So it tells you that our production is down. We know that, certainly in the commodities. And if you look at the supermarket, what's happening. So clearly there's a disconnect there. We need to, everyone concerned says we need to, because there's infrastructure, there's the Asian farmer, there's financing, there's a lot of issues. There's extension also. Most farmers don't know the extension officers, So, and the training and development. So,
what is disappointing? We've been talking about that for years.
Yeah. But we have to come on board with this. We have to come on board with this. And
let's hope we can get this.
And fundamental for food security also. And I think our next guest would probably have some ideas in this, Chris, too. So, probably it's a good time to break. Viewers, we want you to stay with us. When we come back, we'll have our special guest, Dr. Valma Jessamy, to join us. So stay with us. We'll be right back momentarily.
Grenada Steel Band Association, Grenada Tourism Authority, NOC 50, and Spice Mass Corporation presents Pan on the Sand 3, Sunday, January 28, 2024, from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. It's gonna be the Golden Jubilee edition. Come join us for a joyous evening of Pan entertainment, food and drinks, and bonfire, featuring 7 steel bands, Co-op Band Comancheros, Suzuki Food Fair, Pan Wizard, CBI Rainbow City All-Stars, Pan Osea, Nexon, New Dimension Steel Orchestra, Republic Bank Angel Hawk, and Grand Roy Pan Angels. The Grand Dance Beach is where it's all happening in front of the Grand Dance Craft and Spice Market. Pan on the Sand 3, going down Sunday, January 28, 2024, 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. And best of all, admission absolutely free.
Concerned about your general health and wellness?
Do you need to know your complete blood count, lipid profile, or HbA1c?
Maybe you're an athlete or work in an environment that requires regular drug screening.
Interested in STI screening? What about renal, liver, or thyroid tests?
All these tests, plus hundreds more, are available at Allied Laboratories.
At Allied Laboratories, we are committed to providing the best service with accurate results. We now have 3 fully equipped locations to better serve you. You can contact our Grand Anse branch at 403-3488. You can contact our Grenville branch at 410-3488. Or you can contact our newest addition, the Guelph branch, at 404-3488. Or send us an email.
We're taking care of Grenada.
Are you concerned about the impact of climate change on your home or business? The Enhanced Direct Access Climate Adaptation Revolving Fund at the Grenada Development Bank can make your worries a thing of the past. The fund offers concessional financing to households and businesses, focusing on vulnerable populations such as lower-income families and persons with special needs. You could qualify for up to EC $200,000 with an incredibly low interest rate of just 2% annually. With this funding, you can make essential improvements such as building retaining walls for erosion control, making structural improvements to withstand hurricanes, and installing water-efficient bathroom solutions. Take action today. Contact the GDB at 440-2382 to learn more about how you can apply for this funding opportunity. Let's work together to create a climate-resilient nation. The Enhanced Direct Access Project is financed by the Green Climate Fund through the Government of Grenada.
Look at how we've grown, how far we've run. 50 years we strong and more to come. More to come. More to come. We're going higher. 50 years we're blessed, we're forged in fire. Still reaching for more. Going up, going up, 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 up. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up. We're going higher.
Welcome back, viewers. This is Community Forum, and in this segment of the forum, we're going to introduce you to our most beautiful guest, Dr. Valma Jessamy, who is a local female entrepreneur who have been involved in the business of honey producing, dealing with issues of medicinal herbs. She's a scientist in her own right in the environment. I've been engaged in a lot of work with environmental impact assessments and the impact and what is happening. And you know, we have a lot of things happening now in climate change. So Dr. Valma here is, Dr. Jessamy is here to help us go through some of these most important topics and to get our views as how difficult or not so difficult it has been as a female entrepreneur in her business, and give us some insights to you ladies who want to go down that road. So Doc, welcome. Welcome to Community Forum.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I get into answering all of this, I have some little goodies here in my bag.
Chris, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, well, we take them what we
I'm a
get.
gift giver.
You're a
If you
gift
don't-
giver,
If you
wow.
don't know me, then now you know.
Wow,
I like
wow.
to give gifts.
Chris, there's only one box, so maybe we
No,
gotta
there's more than
spin
one
it.
box.
Yeah.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
probably don't remember, but I vividly do. In 1995,
Hmm.
you were one of the first persons who agreed to support my environmental school, the summer environmental school. You remember that?
Serious. Chris, that's old age or what?
Yeah. Sometimes we just call it, so we can understand.
Serious?
In 1995, you
It's a
were
while, eh?
the executive director
Yeah,
for art.
that's correct. I was, yes.
Agency for Rural
Yes, that's
Transformation.
correct, that's
Little kids
correct.
don't know about that anymore.
That's correct. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
And I had just finished my master's in environmental engineering sciences, and I was not ready to come home, but I had all these great ideas. I had to come home. I thought, okay, what am I going to Grenada to do? So I had this idea that I will, start this summer environmental program, very intensive, internship.
Good.
And I reached out to different
Yeah.
organizations to sponsor the program. And he was like, we don't have a lot of money, but great idea. I want to support you on this venture. And you gave us, I can't remember the sum, but the amount of money was not really the important thing, because we also got some support from UNESCO and Barclays Bank, who ended up being the major sponsor. But you were very supportive, and one of the first persons to say, well, this is needed, blah, 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 blah. The rest is history. And so I wanted to remind you of that as I look back on 30 years.
That's
you're one
incredible.
of the persons who, of course,
because
Papa.
because Chris, at that time we had a major problem. I was excited to. Probably it was the first time I was meeting an environmental scientist. Someone who was concerned and had the competencies, the capacity to deal with that. One of the issues we faced, for example, was simpler sand mining. We were losing our beaches around the island. You did some work for us in Woburn area, if you recall, with the mangrove. This is in the 90s, because it was threatened then. So environmental work started a while, and that was involved in advocacy. So it was natural for us to, when you came on the scenes, to say, this is something we want to support. Thank you very much.
So in there, you can open it when you
can.
get home. Or you're going to open it now. You want me to tie it back? No, you can open it.
I'm going to tie it back.
It's a sampler with our award-winning vitamin honey.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I did not leave you out, Mr. Bialy.
Yes.
I brought you one.
I was just getting worried. Thank you very much.
Thank you
so much
Thank you.
for having me on the program.
Doc, let me take you one time. I mean, the phytomed honey, this is what the label says, but as a female entrepreneur in Grenada, how has the journey been? What are the challenges? How has it been to bring us to the point where you are, you have these products, and how is the business going?
Very trying, very, very difficult. There wasn't, maybe there is one now. I'm very insular, so I probably don't do as much reaching out as I should. But at the time, you're a pioneer. You're the only one doing this, not just in Grenada, but throughout the Caribbean. I am in a male-dominated field, not just in Grenada, but globally. At many of my university programs, you're the only woman, you're the only black person, that kind of stuff. So it has been, there are times you have to read out your qualifications to get respect, which you shouldn't have to. I remember sitting at a table with a group of men, and they looking at me to be the note taker. And so I deliberately go to meetings now, and I do not bring any pen and paper because I'm not a secretary. I'm the expert in the room. Yes. So they would start looking around, who's going to take the notes? And I'm looking back around, and somebody would find a piece of paper and pass it over, and I'm like, no, I'm not a secretary in the room. So they would have to call somebody out of the office to come and take the notes.
So the business, because for anybody who's starting, because you have some pioneer stuff in terms of your business. When I first met you, I knew you as an environmental engineer and doing impact assessments and so on. And how has that been? How has that part? Because you have now moved into, herbs
I have not
and honey
left that.
and so
I
on.
have not left that. I do not speak about it for many reasons. A lot of the work that I do is confidential. At present, for instance, I'm doing environmental engineering science with a company on a power plant. We successfully did engineering for the new power plant that's being built in Antigua. It's a natural gas plant. We were behind the scenes working with Renegade Rum and did all the environmental engineering for setting up the facility. So the work that I do is with private clients, with development agencies, as a policy expert, as a policy advisor. I have learned to quiet that voice. And it's difficult to do advocacy and be an advisor.
So I want to ask, because you have been in the environmental impact assessment business for many years. How have you seen climate change changing what you started off when you started in the 80s in terms of the engineering, and what is happening now because of all the differences we see and the impacts of climate change on society?
I think the sensibilities have not changed. In fact, people want to do more and more in the coastal zone. We're an island state. We have to deal with one of the outcomes of a change in environment is the rise in sea levels. Yet we are putting so much infrastructure and investment into the coastal zone. We did a model coastal zone, integrated coastal zone management strategy and policy for the OECS, for all of the OECS states, with Antigua and Barbuda as the case study, the special case, just before they got hit by that big hurricane. And we had a GIS expert as part of our team, Dr. Paulette. And we did visualization of a future climate change scenario. And so much of the assets are stranded, will be stranded in the coastal zone in projections for 50-year, what storm surges would look like, etc. And the modeling is based on real data. So we're not just coming up with these scenarios. You're projecting based on knowledge from past hurricanes and evidence. So it's very evidence-based. And the same thing is done for other islands. When the last major hurricane happened in Barbuda, a lot of this, we kind of were like prophets, kind of foretold some of this would happen. The same thing happened here for Grenada. For my doctoral work, I looked at an integrated framework for development planning in light of natural hazard mitigation and climate change futures. It's sad that Ivan happened just as I published that body of work. And we did things like rebuild the stadium in that location. The stadium is in need of fixing a lot of money, a lot of engineering work, the infrastructure, the structural integrity is influenced by the high water table. We're spending millions to build, storm flood mitigation. The stadium is in the floodplain of the river. And we continue to have development in the watersheds unmitigated. So if you are changing the watershed rapidly, look at Mount Parnassus and the mega size residential with concrete and roofs. And so there's nothing to manage the throughput of water.
Speed and volume.
Exactly. Nothing is going into the ground. Very little is going into the ground. So in a watershed like that, the development planning needs to change. The mitigation measures should be happening upstream and not at the mouth of the river. So there are known engineering strategies to deal with that. One, how people build has to change. You can't just have all the water from your roof run into the road and to the street and down. You need to get things back into the ground. There are dams and checks and stuff that could be done on the watershed so that you control the water. One of the experiences I've had, which was really foundation for my training as an environmental engineer, I worked in the city of Orlando with the Stormwater Management Bureau. And you know, Florida is a wet state. Yeah. And there's a lot of water in Florida. And Orlando have all these lakes that you see, but they're not natural. They're man-made. And a lot of these detention systems were designed to manage rainwater and flooding and what have you. And they've created all of these artificial
problems with flooding now.
Well, they will, because we keep developing. Yes, we keep developing.
And the veracity of the floods and so on now even
it's more extreme.
More extreme
because the climate is changing. What is not changing is human behavior.
Yeah.
And so there's no short answer to. We can come up with all kind of engineering prescriptions, but human behavior is not changing.
You have to come up with a prescription for the human behavior.
Dr. Jessamy, you cannot not be an advocate on these matters, particularly in the context that you're an environmental scientist, as you said, an earth scientist. You have studied, you understand, you appreciate. You live in a small island state, and you can't not be an advocate. To me, because I want to go on. Because
Byron, it's difficult to be an advocate in such a small space, because when you're an advocate, you agitate, you upset, and then you don't get hired.
But let's pull something out. Here, and I want to move to St. Patrick's, to Soutez, to the Breakwater project, to Davy Prospect. They have lost a way of life. People had to be relocated.
Well, the project should not have happened.
Well, exactly. So as clearly there was no EIA done for this project. It's a disaster. How you look at?
Wasn't an EIA done for the project?
I don't think so. Not to my knowledge.
I remember being
so you can't as an
project.
expert be here and see this happening, and don't advocate. Don't say nothing. You have a responsibility. Chris, you see my point?
I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
However, we have this culture in Grenada where we sideline the experts. I mean, you go into you look at the boards of organizations, you look at who is in positions as advisors, you look at, and it's not anything that's unique to one government and to say, well, it's this administration and not another administration. A lot of the people who are advising on environment, they are not scientists. They are not trained in environment. They are environmentalists. We all are environmentalists. We all breathe and exchange in the same air of the universe, and we're all earthlings, yes?
Yeah.
But we are not all trained environmental scientists. We are not all trained in the theory of things. And so there are a lot of people who put themselves forward, and I don't want to call names, but there are a lot of people who do not back down. And they do a lot of cut and paste from other people's work and whatever, and they get paid to do that. And it's a disservice. It happened even with a lot of people who are going around as climate change experts. You ask them, what is the albedo effect? You ask them, what is a temperature inversion? You ask them something about the albedo of whatever. They cannot answer those questions. What do they know about climatology or the environment or cloud formation, but they are saying that they're climate change experts. We have a lot of them here in Grenada. And so those persons are around the policy table. They are involved in decision making. Some of them are doing EIAs. Some of them are showing up as environmental experts on project sites and claiming they can shut it down. And with what expertise? So how could I fight that? Why should I fight that? When they are endorsed by the policymakers as being experts, you can't fight that.
But you have to speak out. But
To
you have
who?
to. So,
But speak out to who?
The public. I want to know. I want to
But
know.
the public says, oh, you feel you have a PhD, so not because you think you have a PhD, sit down. The public says that enough times. Education don't mean anything. That's what we say in Grenada. I hear this all the time. So who am I advocating to? On behalf of who? When the audience does not even want you to speak out. I mean, I don't show up in many fora on different issues anymore because you start to speak and you realize you're in the wrong crowd because people start thinking, oh, not because you feel you're intelligent. Really? So advocate to who? And on behalf of who?
so I want to speak about food because this is food, this is health, this is, there's a lot of talk now about food security. To what extent, as a nation, we're able to start with to feed ourselves, reduce the food import bill, quality of life, and particularly in the rural economy, rural development, agriculture, is not much in GDP in terms of under 5%, but still, when you look at the employment and the engagement of communities, particularly in rural communities, it's critical, it's important. You go to the supermarket and you have to search to find any local items for sale. For the Christmas season, we're importing citrus, we're importing lettuce, we're importing
Everything.
carrots,
tomatoes,
everything. High food security bill, the impact on foreign exchange. What is your take on this? Is there a solution? How do we come out of this? How do we change?
We can
tell
if
us
we
how.
speak the truth.
Good. Okay.
Yes?
Yeah. That's what community forum is about.
Very radical truth.
Yes,
the
good.
thing is,
Yeah.
Byron, the term I use is that we need to decolonize agriculture and our health and food system. We need to decolonize it.
Yeah.
We all know the story about being brought here in chains, blah, 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 forced to work on plantations. Our agriculture was never about food so we had this marginal kitchen gardens where the enslaved people grew food to feed themselves, the ground provisions, and some of the things were brought with them, you know, the farming systems, and some that they learned from the Amerindians and people who were here before. And don't fool yourself, there were black people here before the enslaved period, that the European thing that we know about, right? And we came out of that. We had emancipation, but we did not decolonize the agriculture system. We had independence, and we did not have a model of how we move forward from that. So we still caught up in the nostalgia of nutmegs, cocoa, and banana, and now we moved to soursop and what have you. One of the things that happened very drastically from around 1960 to 79 was the land redistribution scheme. And that was a positive thing in terms of equity and social cohesion and you know, peace to reduce crime and all that kind of stuff. Land distribution meant that this person now has a title, a tradable permit, which was used to build private wealth. We see,
Equity.
I mean, so many of us could talk about, hey, I've got this piece of land paper, I'm going to the bank.
Yes, equity.
And I can
school.
send my child to school. And all of us are beneficiaries of that piece of land. But the demise of the plantation system in breaking up and redistributing land meant that agriculture was decimated. We have persons who call themselves farmers, and they have 1 acre of land, 3/4 acre of land. And to support that, you had the GCNA and the Cocoa Board and the Nutmeg and the Banana Association, so that these small farmers could now pull their produce and sell as a block. And that model worked for a while. But it cannot work anymore. How could somebody farm in less than 10 acres do anything that is going to generate any kind of wealth and be sustainable? And how can he, I mean, you can't go to the bank with that 1 acre to say you're investing in some kind of solid agriculture endeavor. Maybe they'll give you a motor vehicle, which they
With technology now, with technology now, you don't require large plots of land. So
yeah,
you
but
can,
what are you doing technology to do what?
technology to grow different crops,
Lettuce?
like lettuce, cabbage,
But
maybe.
lettuce
Yeah.
is not food. That's not food.
Well,
look at what we're importing.
Yeah.
Let's look at what we're importing.
Okay.
You can't grow that with hydroponics.
No.
There are still people in the world doing real hard agriculture. The best lands that we can do large scale farming with and mechanize and what have you, that have, I mean, it's fast being transformed into real estate
That's correct.
schemes.
In the absence of a land use policy also, there's no control. It's just wherever, whenever.
But that is what happened with the demise of the plantation system. And so you have all these marginal little pieces of land is what's being farmed.
Yeah.
And the best lands, the people who own it, they've long left agriculture and they break it up and even further.
But decolonized, in other words, how do we move? And I'm going back to the question, Doc, how do we move from this? Where do we go?
We have to look at several things. We have to redefine what is the agriculture product that we're selling. And look at high value. So somebody could have 1 acre of black pepper, 1 acre of cardamom, 1 acre of vanilla, as opposed to 1 acre with 2 breadfruit trees, 2 cocoa trees, 5 nutmeg, and he's in a nutmeg association and a cocoa association, and he goes 1 bucket of cocoa a year.
So specialization, particular
You must have specialization all through, all across, so that you can do things to scale, you can do high value, you can also bring the enterprise to the farm.
How does science and technology now mesh or harmonize with the aspect of what you're talking about, identifying niche products and areas that we could get involved? On the background and on the context that our farmers are now young people, they're aged people.
Of
How
course.
do we get our
So
young people involved in
I
this?
met a young man today. He is doing black castor oil. And I thought, great, there is a market for castor oil. Do you have a farm? He's like, no, we have a lot of wild castor oil all about. And so tomorrow somebody cuts down all of the castor oil and clear it to do whatever. Why isn't this young man with the knowledge he's developed say, okay, I'm going to do 2 acres of castor oil, and then I can have a high value product that I can even look for export markets, because there are export markets for castor oil.
Or any of those other niche areas that you're talking about.
Exactly. So agriculture cannot continue to be about planting nutmegs and planting cocoa and planting spices without a value-added component.
So, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture, I think it was in November, came out with a big scheme replanting spices. So they shared out around the country, schools, thousands and thousands of plants. You're saying that's a waste of time? That's of no value?
I think it's a feel-good thing. You see, our politicians continue to stir up our emotions and make us feel very good. Me included, yes?
Okay.
But that's not going to move the needle. Is there anybody who planted 50 acres of cloves?
No.
Do we have 50 acres of land that we could find?
Maybe collectively it comes to 50
And
acres.
Singularly.
But you
No.
can probably we also have something that's called a crop suitability plan, map. It exists.
Yeah, it does.
We know, for instance, there's a cocoa map which shows the areas on the island that has the best terroir for cocoa. So
We know that production is dropping significantly.
well, it will for all kinds of reasons,
Yeah.
including disease
Yeah.
and what have you. And our cocoa fields are old.
Old, yeah.
They were planted more than 50 years
Sure,
ago,
it's
right?
true.
Some,
Yeah,
maybe even 100
it's correct,
years
it's
ago.
correct, yeah.
So we are not feeling the cost to really invest in cocoa. I tried to plant cocoa so that I could answer some questions,
Yeah.
and I've got the data to show. I spent about $600,000 to bring 1 acre of cocoa into production.
Whoa.
Really get a penny. out of it.
Right? The cocoa is bearing. I am very proud to take my buckets of cocoa to the cocoa
Station.
collection point and walk back with. I have the check. I kept the check. You know, $300. I sell nutmegs and I get back pay $5. I have the check. I have paid my $5 check. That's a joke.
Yeah.
So I can take my 1,000 pounds of cocoa with a processing system that cost me about 10,000 US dollars and make chocolate. I did it so I can, because we tie up in so much rhetoric about what can and cannot work. And so I don't want to just make chocolate, I want to make the best chocolate. But I'm not making chocolate like everybody else, with sugar. I've got honey. So
Is this happening?
Yeah. So
Okay,
we
yeah,
have
but it's not on the market
of
yet.
course it is.
How's it called?
It's called Coco Royale. Cacao
Okay,
Royale.
so-
If you go to the honey shop,
Okay, the honey
You
shop.
would get
that's
Coco
a Spiceland Mall, right? Is it?
no, it's at Bruce Street Mall.
Bruce Street Mall, not Spiceland.
We
Mall.
have Coco Royale
Yeah.
and no sugar.
Mm.
Everything is made with honey and it tastes great. This year, for the first time, we've created clove honey. So I planted about 5 acres of cloves and the cloves started to blossom. And so we have a very special medical honey this year. We have clove honey.
By the way, there's a good clove crop coming. Clove, last year they didn't do too well, but this year, the season
The
conditions,
cloves are doing very,
very
well.
well.
And so I'm going to dig into my bag again
Wow.
and I'm going to share with you.
Could you see the presentation, the
Yes,
quality
yes.
of it?
I'm going to share with you 35VX.
color
You were
coded.
just talking
Whoa.
about COVID.
Yeah.
So in 2020, we brought this product to market. We've done several years of R&D, and then we formally launched it in 2020.
So this is what? What?
So this is a herbal complex using medicinal plants from our garden, infused into our medical honey. We have found, we sent our samples to be analyzed all over the world because our Bureau of Standards and the Produce Chem Lab have the equipment, but they haven't been working. They're missing parts, they need to be calibrated, whatever. We have mass spectrometers that cost hundreds of thousands of US, unable to be used at the Bureau of Standards and the Produce Chem Lab.
So the persons involved in agro-processing or in the food industry that needs this service is not
They
available.
can't find the service. I was frustrated trying to get the service out of the Produce Chem Lab.
Okay.
The biochemist is not being used as a biochemist. He's there managing and teaching in some adult program.
Okay.
Yes, and he couldn't find time. I had to hire persons in India and other parts of the world to get my questions answered. Yes, from the UK and elsewhere. We have talent. We are not purposing our talent properly. So I'm an environmental engineering scientist, and I have to argue with somebody who hasn't even had any training in environment that sea level rise is whatever, and that person is hired as the expert. We have people trained in chemistry, biochemistry, chemical engineering, and they're not put to work, they're not purposed. Look at Dr. Guido. He's one of the few persons in the Caribbean with a doctorate in pharmacognosy. He's not purposed.
That's Dr. Guido Marcel?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not purposed. 30 odd years of his work. So we have to, one, put our experts to work. We need to respect our experts. This thing about common sense being before book sense and, oh, if we feel you're educated, that nonsense had to stop. There's no way we can transform our country, agriculture, or anything if we feel threatened by those who can help pull us up.
But Doc, here it is. And I mean, I am flabbergasted from the standpoint of what you have done with your honey and your herbs and so on your estate and what you do. But here it is, you put in, I don't want to say out of the box, I'm tired with that box.
I'm not in a box, I've never been in a box.
Probably we need to mash up the box. But
yes,
the
there's no box.
The issue here is that you're looking at agriculture here, I'm interpreting this, and tell me if I'm wrong, that this is about value add in a major part, and we have all the necessary raw ingredients here to make it work.
100%.
We need to have agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture, the policy makers, the policy advisors, to change. Because we were producers in the past, of nutmeg and raw materials and selling it out. Now, can we change that concept or decolonialize it?
As we're going to use your term,
and bring it where we now become the people that will supply our own raw materials and do the value add.
Right here. There's too much government in agriculture. In everything we do, we wait for the government to do this, the government to do that. And I deliberately kept the government out of what I am doing. I deliberately did not ask for permission to live, to do what I want to do. And so I remained, if you want to say, under the radar, quietly, because the roadblocks, people tell you something cannot happen because they've never done it, because they have not imagined it, because they are afraid of failure. We believe that we need permission from the white colonial to say, yes, you can do that. If a black man says moringa is good for you, we are hesitant to agree. When the white man makes moringa popular, then we try to catch up.
There's a corn oil story versus the coconut oil story.
Yes, yes. And now they're telling us coconut is the best thing for Alzheimer's, and we all now ready to replant the coconut.
I mean, there's ample evidence of that.
So we lack cultural confidence
So how do
in ourselves.
we get our young people to buy into this concept and get it where I think it needs to go? I'm agreeing with you. I think that's how do we get our young people to say, you know what? We need a time to stop this. Let's look at niche. As you say, let's grow black pepper.
Yes, I grow black pepper.
Grind it, package
we
it.
produce our own black pepper on the
Our
farm.
own stuff. How do we get our young people to see this is a viable something I could get in, make money, have a decent life, because I'm specializing in this particular crop?
Yes. You go to a small farmer and he has 2 beds of potato and 2 beds of lettuce and 2 beds of cabbage and a cocoa tree there and 5 sauce up there, and he expects to make $1 million out of it.
No, but that's fine to supply a family and feed yourself.
Yes.
But we're talking about
But,
commercial.
but that is multiplied out.
Yeah.
And so when everybody has tomato, there's too much tomato on the
Yes,
market. And
yes.
there isn't one person who says, I have a processing plant, grow tomatoes for me, and you are part of this, because there's no money to be made in the raw material.
Doc, you look at the financing aspect of it, because let me explain some numbers for you quickly. Yes, what you're saying is good, but the financing, we look at the numbers of financing from all the money, the banks, the development banks, the commercial banks, credit unions, all the money that is on lending, less than 5% of that money is related to agriculture and agri-processing and all this.
Well,
so
yeah,
the
we're not putting
policy
money into
of
it. We're
these
not putting money into
institutions
it.
are not making funds available. It's not available. The risk, they say,
But
is too
Byron,
high.
why
So unless you
would-
have your own
why
money,
would these Western countries empower you to become self-sufficient? Why would they empower you to make your own tomato and not buy Heinz?
local
Huh?
banks,
But the local banks are just puppets for
they
something
call them
else.
indigenous
Their
banks.
policies,
No,
but
I
their
mean-
policies are not dictated by themselves. Well, especially some of the banks have left now,
Yeah.
but they do not have a
It's too risky. It's too
liberation.
risky,
They
they
do not
say.
have a liberation policy. Banks
True.
do not have.
Huh?
Banks,
Development Bank.
Yeah, even development bank. Yeah.
banks do not have a liberation policy. A bank's main purpose is to recover the money.
That's
And
correct.
they are not going to work with you for 5 years or 10 years incubation period that you need to get something, because they're based on the retail model. Or
The
banks
commercial
are,
banks are not the best banks for high-risk
For-
agricultural
for-
stuff, and that's where developmental banks
but
come
why
in.
is
The
agriculture high
concessionary
risk?
Because projects in agriculture are not written as, that is one. But the risk for the banks, commercial lending, and what they do is the issue of climate.
Yeah.
Too much rain, too
A
much
bad
sun,
year.
No,
disease.
no.
you
That's
know,
the old story that
crop
we've been. That's
rotation,
the story.
and
That's
so
the
on.
story we've been fed. One, you cannot scale. Two, it's risky. Don't do it.
No, no, no. And
Meanwhile,
there's fair reason
but
too.
no. But meanwhile, we are importing. We're importing
Yeah, we're
food
importing
that are produced under the same conditions of high risk.
No, but
Agriculture has
They
climate.
get high subsidies there.
that's right. And the technology, you see,
Yeah.
we look greenhouses. Consistency in production, control of the environment under a greenhouse is far better than.
Of course, I agree with you.
Right, so there is a science meeting the agriculture.
But that
So,
cannot
I'm
feed.
saying-
That is not what food is only about.
No, no,
That's not
no.
what agriculture is only about.
But I'm not trying to justify. I'm just saying this is why the financial institutions that we know it would see that as high risk unless you could show them how you're mitigating the risk. Whereas the development banks may probably have a greater appetite because of how the funds have come about. So I'm just saying we need to reframe that. But that comes from the policymakers as well. The policymakers
Yes.
need to say to us, listen, guys, the trust, and we speak it, but we don't act it. You hear policymakers saying the trust must be in value add. Let's go into agro-processing. We've been saying that for years.
Yes, but the policymakers have too much say. The policymakers' role is to do just what they do. If you look at the 2016 Fiscal Incentive Act, it provides broad measures to support investment into agriculture. If you do R&D, you are entitled to 150% return on your profits and all sorts of. I mean, it's really, really very good fiscal incentives.
There's the one
in place
sector we have
for-
in Grenada that has the least amount of taxes. They don't pay corporation
Exactly.
tax. They have concessions
There are
on
no
gas,
land, no
vehicles,
property
no property
taxes,
tax.
etc.
They have all.
So,
They need more.
so
don't-
but
we-
the financing
yeah.
has to come from other sources, not
Yeah.
just from those
Yeah.
those commercial institutions are not set up to finance development.
I'm just informed by the director that we're running out
Yes,
of
we can
time.
talk for the rest of the night.
But there's one thing you said, Doug. You're a sustainable living expert, and you talk about I teach how to live the sustainable life.
Yeah.
And in 30 seconds, what does this mean?
So somebody asked me, what are
Yeah.
you going to do with all of this because you do not have children?
Yeah.
So maybe I should not want to. So all of this
Yeah.
is for future generations of Grenada, what I'm doing.
Okay.
But seriously, I grow what I eat.
Yeah.
A few months ago, I was not very well. I went to the doctor, not feeling well, and
Yeah.
she prescribed medication for me
Yeah.
to get my pressure and stuff under control. And I went home and I went on the internet, read all the side effects, and I thought, ah. And I went out into the garden
Yeah.
with my Caribbean pharmacopoeia, which is from 1700s. I had to read it in French.
Okay.
And I found all the healing plants I needed and took care of myself.
The dosage was correct, obviously, because it's still with us.
So, great. So is the public, the garden, is the public invited to it? Is this a public place where you can visit?
Not at present.
Not at present.
We have been focused on research and development.
Mhm.
I've got a global team that I work with
Mhm.
from different parts of the world who do a lot of our testing and R&D, and the actual production is on site at the farm. So we have a lot of research work going on. And so we're less focused on providing a hospitality service. We're not able to provide a hospitality service at this time.
Okay, Dr. Jessamy, I mean, for this 50th anniversary, I mean, we have looked at, the community forum have looked and said, look, we want to invite a number of women entrepreneurs and women in business, women, to showcase that. And you're the first, and I want to say that we are very proud. I think Grenada needs to be very proud of you in terms of your accomplishment, but what in fact you're doing. And this work is ongoing, so we want to compliment you for this. Let me not let Chris add his voice, but that's what I want to say.
Absolutely, I mean, and it's a pioneering work. I think that is the amazing part.
Thank you.
You know, and we talk transformation loosely now, but this is truly transformational. Because if you could get this herb-infused honey products to the point, I mean, we all know and for years know about the benefits of honey. And things that we don't even know about honey.
Exactly.
That we
There's
still
so much
learning.
more.
Yes. So,
There's
I
so
mean,
much more.
there is only one word to say, you know, great work, continue doing the great work.
Thank you.
And we encourage
Well,
that.
I have been taught that you can't say you have knowledge if you do not practice. And so,
And evidence it by
and yes,
The results.
right. And so that has been what's been driving me to do what I do, to create the garden and to move the garden to be able to be sustainable in terms of financing itself, using everything from the garden. So that's what I am teaching to do.
Thank you.
100, except for the packaging,
Yeah.
but everything in here
No, this is
made
Yeah.
from the garden. The honey, the healing herbs,
It's a holistic.
everything comes out of Eden. We do not use raw materials from anywhere outside of the garden.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Valma Jessamy. Thank you very much. Viewers, that's all the time we have. We'll see you next week, same time. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Community Forum came to you in association with the Grenada Development